What do you do when you accidentally say something awful to your partner when drunk? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my girlfriend is overworking her body at the gym, and I don't know what to do. So my 24-year-old male partner, 24-year-old female, for as long as I've known her, has been overworking her body at the gym. She does CrossFit, and she ends up being at the gym for around 1.5 to 2 hours every day, except Sunday as her gym is closed that day. Even then, she works out at home. This ordinarily wouldn't be much of an issue, but she's got eating disorders related to body image issues, which I understand, so she only eats 1 meal a day at night. And even then, it's only a small meal. She has been getting better though, as when we started dating 4 months ago, she was only eating a single protein bar a day. She's been complaining a lot about how she's tired a lot, about how she doesn't have that much energy, and how sore she is every day. I keep telling her that I understand why she's doing what she's doing, but she should try and not go to the gym as often as she is, because at this point, it's only breaking her body down. She's not losing fat or anything, it's muscle mass she's burning. She's often dismissive about it, saying that it's fine or meh, or that she's not being as stupid as I think she is. I want to be there for her and support her as much as I can emotionally, as I won't be able to be around her more regularly until next month. But I feel like I'm only making her situation worse, as today we had another one of the talks about my concerns of her destroying her body, and she was a bit off afterwards. So I asked if she was upset with me, and she said that she was upset she already felt like crap, but now she feels worse. I don't know what to do, whether I should continue telling her my concerns or anything else. So I think the problem is OP's not necessarily going to be the one to fix those problems for them. This is just how I personally feel about it, but in a situation like this, it's almost kind of like an addiction, where they're going to want to have to get better before anything changes. And something like this, I feel like somebody needs legitimate professional help with. Chances are they probably even realize the situation for what it is, but it boils down to what they actually want. Our next story is boyfriend spoon-feeding his girlfriend in front of me. Me, 21-year-old female, and my boyfriend, 25-year-old male, been dating for 6 months now. We do know each other through our families since primary school, but we didn't talk much. And recently I met him through my college friend, 21-year-old female, which is his middle school friend. So we hung out a few times together through her and started texting. We texted for 2 months and started dating after that. So recently we went to hang out in the same place we met, and we were drinking. He was talking with her a lot more than he does with me, and we had some snacks ordered, so when that came, first he fed me like usual, and after a few times he started feeding her. Like, spoon-fed her. I don't know if I'm overthinking about this, but I didn't like that. It was like the girlfriend treatment he gives is actually for every girlfriend in his life. I was mad and we talked about it later that night. He said he didn't know and that he's always been doing that. How do I react to the situation and confront him? So I think I would pretty much mirror OP. Unless this is a child, I feel like spoon-feeding somebody is a pretty intimate thing to do. I don't think I would be able to believe that most average people, if they saw their partner spoon-feed another adult person of the opposite sex, would all too often have a takeaway of, oh, they're just being good friends. In fact, I think there would be a subset of people that just seeing actual partners spoon-feeding each other in public would be a kind of uncomfortable thing to see. Our next story is concerned about my daughter, 20-year-old female, dating a guy, 48-year-old male, who is older and physically intimidating. I, 44-year-old male, need some advice on how to approach a delicate situation. My daughter, 20-year-old female, is currently in a relationship with a man, 48-year-old male, who is significantly older than her and physically stronger. He has tattoos and is quite tall, which makes me concerned about the dynamics of their relationship. I want my daughter to be happy, but I can't shake off this feeling of discomfort. I'm worried that the age difference and the power imbalance between them might not be healthy for her. How can I talk to my daughter about my concerns without pushing her away? Has anyone been in a similar situation or have any advice on how to navigate this delicate matter? I just want to make sure that my daughter is safe and making informed decisions. Thank you in advance for any advice or insight. I can't lie, usually I'm like, consenting adults should be able to make their own choices, but this is one of those age gaps I've heard on here that really is like a head scratcher. I mean, if you imagine yourself in OP's shoes, how comfortable can you be with your 20-year-old daughter dating somebody that's 4 years older than you are? When this guy was 20 years old, done and graduated with high school probably, there was still another 8 years that went by before the daughter was even born. I just think though, you just have to make sure that your daughter knows in earnest that you're there for them. If there is anything going wrong, that you want to be there for them, and that no questions asked, you contact me, you ask for help, I'll be there, no questions asked, no judgment, just make it known that you are an absolute lifeline that wants nothing but good things for them. Our next story is, my 33-year-old female husband, 35-year-old male, is asexual, and I don't want to ruin my kid's life over sex. My husband and I have been together for 14 years. The first 3 were long distance while we finished school. We developed a strong emotional bond before physical ever came into play. We visited several times for varying lengths, weeks to months, with sex never being an issue. I moved to his state, around a 6-hour flight away, shortly after graduating, and we set up our lives here. I suspected that he may be gray asexual from within those early years. However, I wasn't prepared for him to come out as fully asexual about a year after our child was born. We've only hooked up a handful of times since this. 3 years. I've approached him about an open relationship twice, and both have ended poorly. I've not pushed the issue and respect his choice. However, I'm now at a point where I don't know if I can live the rest of my life without it, or with extremely rare pity sex. My entire support system is in another state. I know they would welcome me home and support me and my child while we got our feet under us. However, I cannot imagine taking my child away from her father, and I cannot feasibly financially live in our city alone as a single parent. Other than hooking up, my husband is my best friend. I love him deeply, respect him, and we've built a comfortable, modest lives for ourselves. We both struggle with mental health, are in personal therapy, and are in couples therapy, but thoughts like this cannot be taken back and can hurt deeply. And I'm not ready to share in couples therapy yet. I feel like I'm stuck. I need sex, I crave it, I'm not going to cheat, and I hate that the thought has crossed my mind more than once. I think this is a something has to give type situation. Obviously, in this relationship, they're not going to keep you satisfied in the way that you need. I know it actually kind of seems like, am I uprooting mine and my children's lives just because of sex? But realistically, it's a part of what keeps you happy and functioning and going in a day-to-day life. It's kind of like saying you can only eat bland food for the rest of your life because your partner says so. Are you really going to uproot you and your kid's life just so you can enjoy some more spices on your food? It's just a part of what's making your daily life miserable that is not something you should just ignore. On Support 4873 wrote, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I don't think it's as simple as ruining your kid's life over sex. You're not ruining their lives, and this isn't just about sex. It's about your needs. 1, marriages do end, half of them. It isn't ideal, but it is reality and children can still thrive. I'm all for trying to make a marriage work before you call it quits, but I'm not all for staying in a marriage just for the sake of your kids. You only get one life. 2, I'm not sure how your husband can expect to not hook up with you, but for you also to not hook up with other people? You're just never supposed to have sex then? When that wasn't what you originally agreed to? Why should you have to make all the sacrifice? 3, have you two ever been to couples therapy? I would suggest a therapist who is familiar with non-monogamy. They may be able to help you figure this out. Edit, just saw that you are indeed in couples therapy. I think you should work on getting ready to bring all of this up. It might go poorly, and your marriage may not survive you trying to get what you need, but your marriage will probably not survive you being unsatisfied forever either. Our next story is, my boyfriend told me he has a body count of between 100 and 1,000. My boyfriend, 21-year-old male, and I, 18-year-old female, have only been dating for around 2 months now. He's pansexual and I'm bi. We were friends for a while before dating, and I'd known he liked having sex. He's traveled to a lot of countries, and I know he was a Grindr user. I was always intimidated about the number, especially because I was a virgin when we started dating. One day, I asked him how many it actually was, and that's exactly what he said. He said he stopped keeping track a long time ago, and that the number started getting too high to keep track of when he was only 15. When I asked him to ballpark it, that's when he told me, between 100 and 1,000. I'm so inexperienced, and obviously that is intimidating to hear, that my boyfriend has potentially slept with hundreds of people. We go to university together, and when we walk the campus and I see a queer person, I can't help but wonder if he's hooked up with them. My best friend doesn't believe him and think he's just making it up to seem cool or something, but I really don't think he would just lie about it. I guess what I'm getting at here is that since I've had no experience besides him, I get so nervous to hook up with him. How can I possibly live up to hundreds of people when I have no idea what I'm doing? Edit, he doesn't boast or brag about it at all. And we'd already been hooking up prior to me asking him. The high number doesn't bother me. I mean, frankly, I was expecting something in the 80s, which is obviously still very high. On Grindr, it's really easy to hook up with people. It's not that he's incapable of having emotional intimacy or anything like that, as he had gotten out of a 2.5-year-long relationship last year for reasons I won't explain. When I asked, he told me, "The number really doesn't matter to me, but I know it matters to you. Take with that what you will." So maybe the 100 is a little bit more believable, but I think almost everybody can agree that his range here is pretty wild. I legitimately did the math because I'm curious. If it was 100 from the time he was 14 to 20, that would mean he hooked up with somebody new every 22 days. Now, if he legitimately thinks it's more than that, and if that he actually is approaching 1,000, that means from the time he was 14 to 20 years old, that means he would have to have slept with a new person just over once every 2 days. I mean, it just gets hard for me to believe either of those numbers. I mean, when you even hear a number like 37, you're like, that's a lot. In a row? Like, I just don't know if I would believe that he's actually being truthful. It might still be a pretty decent number for an average person, but 100 already seems like a stretch. 1,000 is ridiculous. All I'm gonna say is, if it's actually 1,000, I feel bad for the monogamous partner he's with, because for somebody like that, you must be mighty sore all the time is all I'm saying. This next story is, my son, 19-year-old male, is having sex with an older man, 58-year-old male, and I feel hopeless? I'm using this account as a throwaway. This has been bugging me for a while now, and I need to put it out somewhere. Since the start of February, I discovered my 19-year-old son has been seeing a 58-year-old man for sex. My son works at Burger King, and the man has been a frequent visitor ever since he saw my son, apparently since December last year. After a while, they started getting along, and the man got my son's number and Facebook details. He invited him to his house and seduced him. I was shocked at first because I didn't know my son is into men, but he told me he's experimenting, and why with someone so old? I told him he's using him, and to wear condoms at least, and that I am against it. My son doesn't like it. I'm a single mom and feel hopeless, like I can't do anything. I haven't told my friends or anyone because I am embarrassed. It's eating me up inside. Can you recommend me how to put an end to this, if possible? Or should I just leave it be? So you know that whole thing I said about the 20-year-old and the 48-year-old man? Yeah, we just got a new record. In this situation, I would just say do what you can, similar to like I said with the other situation. You just try to be there for them and make them know that you are that absolute lifeline, no questions asked. And I'd also go out of the way to make sure that he's getting things like condoms. I don't know if he would actually stay up on it, but there's also a thing called PrEP he can take, which greatly increases the chance of preventing something like HIV, which somebody like this 58-year-old man who's going around trying to seduce young adults probably is the kind of guy that sleeps around quite a bit. Ultimately, you just have to make sure that they know you're there for them, and also try not to nag them or push them away. As easy as it may feel like it is to do with somebody that is in such a, honestly, kind of disgusting situation. Our next story is, am I, 32-year-old female, right to be upset that my husband, 40-year-old male, wants me to get bigger boobs? Me and my husband have been together for 5 years, married for 3. Back in 2020, I, 32-year-old female, got breast implants. Something my husband, 41-year-old male, was extremely happy about and paid for. Before the op, we had discussed about sizes. I was modeling at the time and also have a fairly traditional family where they don't think cosmetic surgery is necessary. Because of these factors, I settled on between 250cc and 300cc implants. My husband naturally wanted me to have the larger option, however, I ended up going for the smaller 250cc. There's really not much difference in it, but at the time, I felt a lot of pressure from family and modeling agency to not go too big. I was very happy with the size and felt like it really evened my body shape out. My family were even pleasantly surprised at the results. My husband, however, feels shortchanged, and now every couple of weeks asks when I will be going larger. I always knew I would eventually go larger, but I wanted them redone after we finished having children, as I found they got way too big when I was pregnant and breastfeeding with my current implants. At the beginning of the year, I messed up and said that I would get them done to make him happy, but have since rethought about what I was actually doing. And going through a major operation and altering my body before I'm ready to just make him happy didn't sit right with me. It's now getting to the point where I feel anxious every time he brings it up, as it ends with him getting angry, grumpy, and upset with me about it. I really don't know how to feel, what to do or say to him on the matter. Any advice? Thanks in advance. I mean, no is a solid answer. I'm kind of worried that OP had a history of just giving in and saying yes to him for whatever reason, but the bottom line is, if you don't want to get a surgery that is an elective cosmetic surgery, you have every right to say, listen, I don't want it, and you should not have to deal with any grief or flack from them because you didn't alter your body for them. Found in Wonderland wrote, he feels shortchanged. He does realize that you're a person with bodily autonomy and not a blow-up doll, right? He does not get to feel shortchanged. It's not his body, they're not his chest. He feels ownership of your breasts, your body, and your personhood. He's acting like he ordered a pair of pants online that are too small. Shortchanged? Boy deserves a smack upside the head. This next story is, am I wrong for threatening to / breaking up with my boyfriend over his celebrity crush? The title doesn't really convey the whole thing. I don't care if he has a celebrity crush. I like Ryan Gosling, so he can knock himself out with whoever. My boyfriend, 29-year-old male, and I, 27-year-old female, edit of 6 years, edit have been watching Game of Thrones over the past few weeks. He's seen it before, I haven't. I asked to watch it with him and he was reluctant because in his words, it was more disappointing than when my dog died. But we watch things together and cuddle and kiss and sometimes hook up while watching them, and I wanted to see it so I could better understand House of the Dragon. So he relented and so we're watching it. We're near the end of the 3rd season and I'm enjoying it a lot so far. In the episode we were last watching, there's a sex scene and we've already been cuddling and kissing a bit, but we start kissing, but he tells me to watch what happens in the scene because it's important and there's some leeches, some sucking of blood and some burning. After this, we're half kissing, half watching. There's some more nudity. We start hooking up. After a while of hooking up with it in the background, I ask if we can pause it and restart it when we finish, which we've done a few times, and it pauses on a fat male character's face. It's funny. My boyfriend jokes that he's not hooking up with that guy watching us, so he gets up to get rid of him. Rather than just close it, turn it off, or whatever, he rewinds it. Okay, not so much of a problem. But he rewinds it a few minutes back specifically to show Emilia Clarke's character naked and pauses it there. He says in a joking voice, "That's better." I laugh and try not to think about it at the time. It's not like he's actually going to be looking at the TV while we hook up, right? Wrong. He's glancing at the screen several times while doing so. He's going at it a lot faster than I prefer and he knows what I prefer. I just put up with it as it's not enough to get me out of the mood. But then what follows is the absolute worst thing. As he finishes, rather than looking at me in my eyes as he does 99% of the time, he looked at her and moans her name. Emilia, that is, not Khaleesi. Then looks at me expecting me to laugh at some hilarious joke. I immediately tell him that is completely unacceptable. He laughs and says it was just a joke and shrugs it off. I double down and tell him that I'm ticked at him, ask him how he thinks it makes me feel and so on, and we argue and he continues to try and excuse it. I tell him it makes me feel awful to be compared to her because obviously she's more beautiful than I am, which he agrees with, but it's understandable because she's a beautiful actress. But okay because he's in love with me. Also, you already knew I had alone time to her anyway. After a while of arguing, he admits he crossed a line with that, and I told him to freak off. I've texted him telling him that I don't think we should talk for a few days, and I'm thinking of calling it quits, but we'll talk when I've thought about this. Even if we stayed together, I don't think I can continue watching Game of Thrones with him and watching her with. I already knew he did alone time over her, and I know he does with Emma Watson and Daisy Ridley too. So I feel like I can't even watch Harry Potter, which has been a big comfort film series for me. Honestly, just ticked off. I feel bad for threatening breaking up over text, rather than just gathering my thoughts and saying everything in one go. What do you think, Reddit? Am I overreacting? I don't think I can manage watching any more Game of Thrones, but he didn't want to watch it anyway. I mean, I think it's fine and all to have your crushes, maybe even your alone time or whatever, but yeah, I think it's pretty clear in this situation whether or not he actually intentionally did so very heavily played into the fact that he was just using OP while focusing on Amelia Clark on the TV. I mean, how do you experience that and not come out of that feeling just used? Like as if you were a human doll that they just used in the moment. It's not even like the crush, it's the fact that he used OP like an object. Our next story is, I, 24-year-old female, think I'm going to leave my fiance, 25-year-old male, of 6 years. I've been sick to my stomach all day thinking about this. I, 24-year-old female, have been with my fiance, male 25, for going on 6 years. We've been engaged for 3 of those years already. I'm feeling like I'm not valued in our relationship and that he doesn't care to listen to me. I'm going to list a few events and details below. We've nearly broke up on New Year's Day a few months ago since I didn't want to stay at his family's New Year's Eve party until 3 a.m. We have spent Thanksgiving and Christmas with his family, and his family throws parties and gatherings that last until the sun rises. There's also lots of dancing, drinking, singing, and loud music. It can get pretty overstimulating. His family is also from Mexico, and most of them don't speak English. And since I'm not entirely fluent in Spanish, a lot of times I just wind up sitting by myself or inside with the kids while he socializes. He doesn't really bring me into conversations. I've gotten way better at speaking Spanish from when we first started dating, and that's due to me making the effort to learn more about the language and, of course, his culture. So anyway, with the New Year's party, we were there from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. and I wanted to leave. Plus, we have pets and I wanted to check on them. We came in one car, who wouldn't? And he didn't want to leave since he said this was the first New Year's he got to spend with his mom, as she chooses, literally chooses, does not financially need to nor is obligated to work 6 days a week. They simply do not tell their boss no. I figured 8 hours of partying was enough, and he had never told me we were going to be staying so late. In the end, I wound up taking his mom's car home alone, and he didn't come home until around 5 a.m. Big argument about how our cultures are just too different ensued, and we nearly broke up. We constantly disagree on petty crap that, in the end, accomplishes the same thing. It wasn't like this in the beginning of our relationship. I don't know if it's machismo bullcrap or what. I'll give him advice or a recommendation and he'll ignore it. But his male cousins or uncles will then say the same crap and all of a sudden their word is law. This is a constant thing that I've called him out on and it hasn't changed. He lies to me regarding finances. I pay for our car, which is entirely in his name. Our interest rate isn't even 1%, so it made no sense to refinance and get the car in my name. I've never missed a car payment. I give him the money to pay the car, $500 a month. He at one point was not paying our car payment and the vehicle got repossessed. Immediately, I had a breakdown thinking our car got stolen while I was at work and he just strung me along. We went along with it in front of my friends. We went down to the police station and he would have me file a false police report had they not been closed for the night. He finally admitted on the way home what happened and I wound up forgiving him and telling him if he needed money to just ask, but to not take it away from bills that I'm paying. I have a degenerative eye condition and other health issues that are currently pointing to a genetic collagen defect. I've been seeing doctors for years, even since before we were together. I was losing my ability to walk in high school due to severe joint pain. About a year and a half ago, I had to have surgery on my eyes to prevent blindness. I was in severe pain, sensitive to light, and of course, had loss of vision while I recovered. Instead of helping me while I was recovering, he asked if he could go out drinking with his ex-stepdad, and I said yes, since I didn't want to be an inconvenience. I had a reduction not even a year ago and needed help showering, taking care of myself. He would forget to leave out water for me, would go out with his cousins knowing I needed help bathing so I wouldn't get an infection, and barely helped cook anything. Even asking him to walk our dog was an inconvenience. My immune system is garbage. I get sick easily and he doesn't seem to care. I was in the ER with an infection in my lymph nodes and a severe ear infection a few months ago, and he went home after a few hours and left me there, which was okay. I'm barely now getting over that infection about 4 months later. But a few weeks after my ER trip, he went out to a party, got really wasted, slumped out of a chair, and needed to go to the ER for a concussion. Guess who stayed there the entire time? Updated his insurance information for him after nagging at him to do it after a year before his benefits got canceled. They did, and helped with his follow-up care. Those are some pinpoint examples. He frequently tells me that I'm making up scenarios or not remembering correctly, which I just default to since I grew up in a very abusive home where gaslighting and manipulation was common. I'm sorry for the long post, but I appreciate anyone who read the entire thing. I could probably write a book about all the bull. At this point, I'm going to finish off our lease until the end of the year, and more than likely leave. I don't deserve this. If there's any advice anyone can give me on how to move forward and separate our lives, such as belongings, pets, etc., I'd appreciate it. I think it's pretty clear that they're just happy of the convenience of having OP around to handle everything, especially money. And hearing this story, cannot blame OP one bit for getting up and getting out of there. This next story is, I messed up really bad and said something awful to my boyfriend when I was drunk and don't know how to fix it. Before I get started, I just want to say I know I freaked up and I am the jerk here. My boyfriend is a wonderful human being who loves me and only deserves the best. Okay, so like I said, I, 29-year-old female, have a wonderful, wonderful boyfriend, 28-year-old male, and we live together. He had a bit of a rough time with finding work, and he started a job at the post office where he works very hard and works 40 to 60 hours a week. I'm only saying this next part because it's necessary to the situation, but I make more than he does and work less hours than him, and we're struggling with some unexpected finances right now, and it's been causing some tension between us. Last night, I went to a bar with some coworkers, and I stayed out later than I should have and came home at 2:30 a.m. pretty drunk. My boyfriend was up waiting for me and told me he was worried about me, and I asked why he stayed up. And he told me he was waiting for me and I shouldn't be out that late on a night when I have work the next day. I don't know why this set me off, but I got very angry and told him he had no right giving me job advice since he doesn't have a real job and can't even afford to pull his weight like a loser. He told me he thought I should go to bed and walked me over to my room and helped me get my shoes and dress off, and I just got in bed and lied down to go to sleep. But the worst part was, as I was drifting off, I heard him crying in the bathroom. When I woke up this morning, he had gone to work and now I'm at work hungover, which sucks. However, I have no idea what to say to him now. He should be home tonight, but I don't know what I can do at this point to just let him know how sorry I am and how much I do admire him and was just acting out of drunken stress last night. He loves steak and potatoes and he's also a big movie guy, so I was thinking of making him steak and potatoes and renting a movie, but I just don't know. Any advice would be appreciated. I mean, the real problem here is I feel like OP's true colors kind of came out in that drunken stress. Otherwise, why would you say those things? When you're upset, do you just lash out and find false things to say just to upset somebody? Or was there some nugget of truth there? Not Always Right 543 said, dinner and an apology is not gonna cut it. You struck at his heart, and now you'll need to bear your own. Spend the day in self-reflection. Be honest with yourself about whatever deep, ugly part of you wanted to say that to him. Stop pretending it isn't there. In that moment, you wanted to hurt him and you had a weapon ready to go. The alcohol let it out. It didn't create it out of whole cloth. Whatever resentments or insecurities or mean, nasty thoughts are hiding in your head and heart need to be aired out right now. I sound judgmental of you, but I am not. We all have those nasty little thoughts. It is appropriate and necessary most of the time not to share them, but to resolve them for ourselves and be better. You haven't, so they burst out of you when you couldn't stop them. That is why you no longer get the privilege of resolving your ugliness, which, again, lives in all of us, not just you, privately. You hurt him by showing it to him, so now you gotta resolve that in a way he can see. Confess it without defensiveness. Admit it. Only then will your apology have any real meaning. If you can't open yourself up to him like this, vulnerable and likely to be hurt in the conversation, then I guess make him dinner or whatever, but you'll know that it was an unworthy apology. That being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another tricky relationship topic, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.